For example, people will say men are more hierarchical than women. I don't think we have any evidence for that. Certainly not in the primates. All the primates have female hierarchies and pecking orders, and in human, the tests that are done by social psychologists don't indicate that men are more hierarchical than women. So that's a standpoint that people have, apparently. I don't know where it comes from. That is not supported.
So this idea of hierarchy, I'm going to speak as a layman here. I mean, I've read your book, but that's about my exposure to primatology and some of your other works as well. So coming into this field, I would have held that belief that, males operate in sort of a hierarchy, and maybe females operate more in egalitarian sort of circles or ways, at least among humans. And I would say in part my ideas of that are partly informed from what I understood about primates. And in your book, you really emphasize the idea that we were sort of sold this idea about chimpanzees and survival of the fittest, and there's this alpha male, and he sort of bullies everyone into submission. And I was really surprised to read that from you, because you draw a stark contrast to bonobos, whom you use to sort of illustrate the idea that maybe this idea of hierarchy is unfounded. If you could speak to that, because I think the broader public probably has the same perception that I did coming into this.
Yeah, as soon as you put young puppies together, or young goslings, or human toddlers in a daycare center, you put them together the first day, they're going to beat up on each other to see who's dominant. That's a general pattern. It's not different by the sexes, even though the hierarchies are usually segregated. There's usually a male hierarchy and a female hierarchy. The males care about their position among the males and the females among the females. Between them, it's a very different issue. So, but hierarchies, the word pecking order comes from hens, not from roosters. And hierarchies are found in all the social female animals that I know, and in male animals. And yeah, people have a wrong idea. For example, they have the idea that the alpha male is a bully and beats up everybody. But, the alpha male can be a very responsible leader, can be someone who keeps the peace in the group and keeps the unity in the group. And alpha males can be extremely popular as a result, because they defend the underdog in the group. And so, yes, you have bullies. Also in chimpanzees, you have bully alpha males. They often don't end very well, because the group gets fed up at some point by their behavior. And you have alpha females. In every group of primates, you have an alpha female. They can be sometimes very powerful. I described in my previous book Mama, the chimpanzee, who basically decided which male was going to be alpha male. So then you wonder, who's the most powerful? Is it the alpha male or the female who decides who's going to be alpha male? So I have a very different opinion. In the experiments that have been done with humans, there's a social psychologist who has created groups of humans of same gender. So she would put 5 women in a room or 5 men in a room, and she would give them a task to decide something together.
Okay.
And she would measure who interrupts whom in the discussion. So if I constantly interrupting you, I must be dominant. That's how she measured dominance. And she found that the men form a rank order more quickly, almost immediately. They're very quick in that. The women take more time, but always end up with a rank order also. Yeah.
So what is the female rank order predicated on? Because I imagine it's physical prowess is probably an indicator, or something that's used to determine rank order, like physical strength and competency. I would imagine the person that's most competent would probably be higher up in rank order. So are these... You're saying that when a group of females operate together, they also form this rank order. But are they predicated on the same things that a male hierarchy would be?
Yeah, I can answer this for the primates. For humans, we have less evidence. And that's because in psychology, they are afraid of dominance and rank orders.
Okay.
So even we're now sitting here on the campus of Emory University, even though every university has a hierarchy, going down from the president to the provost to the deans to the professors to the undergraduate students. We have this enormous hierarchy, but psychologists act as if we are an egalitarian species, and they do very little research on that. But in the primates, I can be very clear, because that has been studied. I would say that the female hierarchy is largely based on personality and age. So for example, Mama, the chimpanzee who was alpha female for 40 years, she was still alpha female when she could barely walk anymore and was blind. She was almost 60 when she died. And that would never happen among the males. Among the males, physical prowess is important. It is not the most important part, because a small male can be alpha male. But males would, if an individual starts to wobble or get blind, they would take advantage of that and kick them out of the position. In the females, no. Females, age is an advantage. And we know that also from the wild chimpanzees. We know that older females tend to dominate younger females. So age is an advantage. And personality, and I find that very hard to define, but some females have a much more assertive personality than other females.
And that's viewed as attractive?
Oh yes, an alpha female can be extremely attractive because she becomes then the sort of the center of the females, even though they also have to obey her. So it's not benign necessarily. So for example, Mama, she would beat up other females if they did not do what she wanted. So for example, if they supported the wrong male in the male power struggles, she would beat them up. So it's not necessarily a nice dominance, but it's less physically expressed also than among the males. Among the males, physical strength is important, and we still see that in humans. We still see that in, for example, presidential elections in the US, the taller men have advantages over shorter men. Right. We know that. And there are psychologists who have done studies on where they show pictures of men and they manipulate how tall they are by the background items they put next to them. And a taller man is seen more as a leader than a shorter man. And for women, size doesn't matter. It's not an issue.
I would say, so you're saying in primate communities, the physical prowess of a female has virtually no bearing on her status in the group, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that would be relatively akin to us humans. I think females are judged on physical appearances that have less to do with physical prowess. Maybe they lean more towards beauty and these things, like those type of superficial things, whereas men, like the breadth of your shoulders.
But I think for leadership,
strength.
Beauty doesn't. I've never heard that beauty matters.
Right. Fair.
Much.
Fair.
For other issues, yeah, between the sexes especially, it's gonna matter, of course. But I think if you're team building, men and women, the beauty of women is not the main issue there. Yeah.
I think. So I wanna pry at this a little bit. So the female alpha, the alpha female. Does she anyway take status from the alpha male? Like, is that how she earns her status, or it's strictly it's a solo endeavor? She's responsible for the group on her own accord and her own merit.
No, because the hierarchies are mostly segregated. Most of the competition in a primate society, and I would say the same in human society, is between members of the same gender. Men compete with men, women with women. The same is true in the primate societies. The dominance relation between the sexes is a sort of different issue, and it's not that important to them. So, for example, in bonobos, the females are dominant over the males. I don't think the males worry much about that. The males worry about where they stand among the males. Whether the females dominate them or not is a sort of secondary issue to them. And I would say that's true for almost all primate societies. And so if a female is alpha, like Mama the chimpanzee, she's alpha on her own among the females. What happens with the males is a sort of different issue. And in the bonobos, the females are collectively dominant over the males. The females are smaller than the males, so they cannot individually physically dominate the male, but collectively the females have managed to become dominant in bonobo society, and the alpha female is alpha over everyone. And yes, in this case, for example, in the bonobos, the females have an effect on the male hierarchy. So the high-ranking males are usually the sons of the high-ranking females. That's a general rule, yeah.
So there's a bit of a kinship there.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of when you look at the male predicated chimpanzee hierarchy and then the female predicated bonobo hierarchy, what are the advantages to one strategy or the other?